This is a Soviet prison camp, also known as the Gulag, the harshest place a person could enter in the Soviet Union. Surrounded by barbed wire and frozen forests, the Gulag holds political prisoners, petty criminals, war veterans, and ordinary people accused of the smallest offenses. Every prisoner wears a number, works from sunrise to sunset, and eats just enough to stay alive. The camps spread across the entire Soviet Union. Prisoners dig mines, cut forests, and build cities with their bare hands. Temperatures drop below -40 degrees, and survival depends on your strength, your allies, and your luck. The Gulag stands as one of the Soviet Union's largest systems of repression, a hidden empire built on forced labor, human suffering, and the fight to survive another day. In this video, we explore this forgotten world. You will learn about the daily life of prisoners, discover the harsh conditions they lived through, understand the difficult work they did, and hear about the remarkable escape attempts across huge wilderness areas. The word Gulag is actually an acronym of its official bureaucratic name. When translated from Russian, it roughly means the main administration of corrective labor camps. Here's the unsettling truth. In Stalin's Soviet Union, almost anyone could disappear into the Gulag. A careless joke about the government, a neighbor's false accusation, or simply belonging to the wrong social class, each could mean years in the camps. In fact, these arrests served a deeper purpose beyond punishment. Stalin needed workers for his massive construction projects across the Soviet Union. His 5-year plan required building new cities, railways, and factories at an incredible speed. The Gulag system provided this workforce. Millions of people were sent to remote locations where they became the builders of Stalin's industrial vision. By the 1950s, the Gulags were spread across all of the Soviet Union's territory. It was arguably one of the darkest periods of 20th century history. The scariest thing about the Gulag system was how random it was. The system went after way more than just real criminals. We're talking about millions of people who were thrown in on what were often completely fabricated or even non-existent charges. Things like treason, spying, or anti-revolutionary activity. Even if you were just perceived to show sympathy towards someone the state labeled an enemy, that could be enough for a one-way ticket to the camps. You see, this system had two really grim purposes. First, to completely crush any hint of dissent, and second, to provide what seemed like an endless supply of forced labor. What makes this even more tragic is that orphan children, left alone after the Russian Civil War, were also brought into this system to increase the number of workers. The nightmare for prisoners often began long before they even set foot in a camp. After grueling interrogations, they were crammed into these unbelievably overcrowded cattle cars. Sometimes they'd sit there for days just waiting for the train to finally move. The conditions were terrible. Very little food, usually just some salted fish, and the only bathroom was a basic hole in the floor. Thousands of prisoners didn't survive the transport journey. They faced severe dehydration, harsh temperatures, and disease outbreaks that claimed their lives before reaching the camps. Then, World War II added another layer of unimaginable horror. When Germany invaded in 1941, Stalin issued Order No. 270. It basically condemned any Red Army soldier who was captured or retreated. Not only might they end up in a German POW camp, but their families could be denied food or even sent straight to the Gulag. For soldiers, this created an impossible situation. They had to continue fighting no matter what, knowing that surrender would put their families at serious risk of being sent to labor camps. On top of that, Gulag prisoners were often forced into these special penal battalions, sent right to the front lines to clear minefields or even act as human shields. And if you tried to run, there were special blocking units ordered to shoot deserters. Once they arrived, inmates faced the harsh reality of daily camp life. Many people passed away from illness, accidents, and exposure to extreme weather. Food was always limited, with rations barely sufficient to survive. Basic necessities like proper clothing and adequate shelter were extremely difficult to obtain. The barracks were typically these dilapidated wooden shacks, offering almost no protection from the winter. The guards controlled everything in the camps. They decided who got food and other basic supplies. Guards would give extra rations to prisoners who worked harder, using these resources to make people work more. This extreme deprivation created this grim internal economy in the camps, where everyday items like tobacco, shoes, and even sewing needles became incredibly valuable currency. And yes, this situation created serious conflicts between prisoners, sometimes resulting in extreme violence. The camps also held dangerous criminals alongside innocent people. These experienced offenders often formed their own groups and controlled daily life inside the barracks. Their power could sometimes even overshadow that of the guards, making them an immediate, terrifying threat for many prisoners. Cruelty in the Gulag knew no religion, age, or gender. Women faced particularly difficult conditions in these camps. Many women were arrested simply because they were related to people the state considered enemies. During arrest and questioning, mothers were taken away from their children and families. When they reached the prison camps, they had to do the same demanding physical work as the men. Many female prisoners formed relationships with other inmates for protection. Some also received better treatment from guards through personal arrangements. These were often desperate survival strategies in an extremely harsh environment. Most Gulag prisoners had no experience with hard physical work. About 18 million people went through the Gulag system, including doctors, teachers, office workers, and many others who suddenly had to do extremely difficult manual labor. Most of them committed no actual crimes and found themselves imprisoned due to random arrests, designed to meet the forced labor needs demanded by Stalin and his inner circle. Depending on where a camp was, prisoners cut down trees or mined metals. While working, prisoners were not given safety clothing or heavy equipment to complete their tasks. Often, they only had their winter clothing and primitive hand tools to dig or build complex projects in the freezing Siberian elements. Being literally worked to death was a very real, very common outcome. The shadow of the Gulag can be felt today by tourists traveling on ferries down the Volga and White Sea-Baltic canals. The canals connecting Moscow to the sea may look peaceful today, but beneath the surface lies a story of forced labor and human loss. You see, in the early 1930s, Stalin launched a massive construction effort to support shipping and naval transport. Two major canals were planned, one linking the White Sea to the Baltic, and the other connecting Moscow to the Volga River. To build them, the Soviet government used tens of thousands of Gulag prisoners. Most of the digging was done by hand. From 1931 to 1933, over 12,000 prisoners died building the White Sea-Baltic Canal. Many believe the true number is even higher. A few years later, the Moscow-Volga Canal project began. It stretched over 80 miles and included 8 locks. Conditions were just as harsh. The work was dangerous, the tools were basic, and the labor never stopped. When prisoners died, their bodies were buried directly into the soil, later flooded as part of the canal. Today, boats pass over what is essentially a mass grave, built during one of the most intense construction campaigns in Soviet history. Escaping the Gulag was extremely difficult. Prisoners had to get past armed guards, dangerous gangs inside the camps, and survive long journeys through remote wilderness. Only 2 nearby countries offered real safety: Finland and China. Despite the odds, some people did escape. One famous story tells of a Polish officer who walked across the Himalayas to India. This inspired the film The Way Back, though the details remain disputed. One fully confirmed escape happened in 1933. Vladimir Tchernavin, a fisheries expert, was transferred to a camp near the Finnish border. There, he met a local who explained how the guards worked. They rotated in pairs, avoided the woods, and feared ambushes. That information was crucial. In 1931, Tchernavin's wife and son were allowed a short visit. He and his wife, Tatiana, began writing coded messages to plan their escape. In late summer 1933, during a supervised visit, the family slipped away. They traveled through forests, crossed rivers, and used a hidden boat to reach Finland. All 3 made it out safely. Once in Finland, they eventually emigrated to England. Their story remains one of the few fully documented escapes from the Gulag system. By 1953, the Gulag held over 3 million people. Following Stalin's death, the Soviet Union began a process of reform. Under Nikita Khrushchev's leadership, many prisoners were released, and the system was scaled back. The truth about the Gulag became more widely known. The narrative of economic efficiency collapsed as evidence of human cost emerged. The trauma experienced by survivors shaped their lives long after release. Many stayed silent, while others recorded their memories through writing, interviews, and memoirs. The Gulag remains a central chapter in 20th century history. Its existence highlights the dangers of unchecked authority and the consequences of turning human beings into expendable labor. Although the physical camps no longer stand, their history serves as a lasting reminder of the importance of justice, accountability, and human dignity.